Hi, it's John Lane here. I'm a results leader, and I'm really glad to be on the show.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
All right, John, welcome to the show. What's good in your world today?
It's good to be live. It's sunny. It's spring. I got my vaccination scheduled for Thursday, and I'm honestly super excited to have a shot in the arm.
Wow. Oh, try telling that to the 6-year-old John. I want to get a shot. It's good.
6-year-old John would not say that at all.
Right, man. So
9-year-old John will say, stick it in my eyeball. I don't care.
Well, it's good to have you on the show, and we are going to start, as we always do, with a softball. John, what book or books have you given most as a gift?
So, books are super important to me. I'm going to break up your question into just a couple little tidbits. So I talk to a lot of startup founders, and the first question I ask them is, have you read The Lean Startup? And if they have not, I say, let's end this call and I will send you a copy on me. Read it because it's so critical. I also get questions from aspiring consultants, and I have two for them: The $1 Million Consultant by Alan Weiss and Go Giver by Bob Burg, and I send them out all the time. And then a more recent addition is I have some friends who have been talking to me about how they're managing through the pandemic and other stuff, and I recommend The Untethered Soul to them. That's been super helpful for me by Michael Singer. So long answer, but a couple of three really good books that I think hopefully maybe some of your listeners will pick up too.
Oh, yeah, man. I haven't read all of those, but I did read Go Giver with Bob Burg, and it was enlightening when I read it.
And I just love it. Yeah.
Good. So let's move on to a popular topic among entrepreneurs: failure. And I'd like to ask you to go back and think about how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
Yeah, that's a really probing question. So I have been in startup land for the last 12 or so years and have not had a big cash out, but I've been involved in a lot of different startups. I've been a founder, a co-founder, an employee, an investor, in some cases, all of the above. And I will tell you, the hardest call I've ever made in my business life was telling some of investors that I convinced to invest in a startup of mine that it was no more. It had gone under. And super rough. I'm sure other people have had to do it as well. But when I look back across the years of startups I've been in, it has given me a big dose of resiliency and an even bigger dose of humility. Where today, when in my practice, I talk to a lot of early stage startup founders and C-level execs of these companies, is I have a dozen years of experience to draw on. And while I haven't seen everything, I've seen a lot. And that has actually allowed me to build a very successful and growing practice in the startup world through more of the failures than the successes, to be honest with you.
I like that you brought the word humility into this conversation. I don't think enough people have that in their lexicon. And you take a whipping or two, and if you don't get humble, you will be humbled eventually.
Yeah, you do. And, the thing I talk to founder starters about all the time is I say, you have to be an absolute mad person if you think you can start a company from scratch and grow it and be successful and change the world even in a little way. I mean, you're mad to think you can do that. So you have to start out with a certain level of confidence and resiliency, but sometimes that can slip into lack of humility, and it will bite you in the bottom one way or the other. So
I'm feeling you, man. That cockiness kills. Cool. So let's talk about investments, John. What would you say is the most worthwhile investment you have ever made?
Well, I'm going to take things like real estate and the stock market off because I think you're not really probing on that. I will tell you, for me, I'm going to say in the last year or so, the most important investment I've made is in a professional coach. And I kind of went into it kicking and screaming. And it really has, I don't want to say it's changed my life, but I'm now on an every other week schedule with her. And we always do it on Zoom now. And she has this way of, she puts her thumb up and pretends to be pushing my forehead and nudging me. And she has just helped me see blind spots and helped me just keep on the straight and narrow and just, accentuate positive things that I do and de-accentuate some of my bad habits. And, when I went and did my taxes and I looked at the aggregate line of, professional coach and how much that was this year, it's a good chunk of money and it was extremely well spent. So I think that's been an investment in me that I'm pretty happy with.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
You said, I don't know if those were exact words, but I heard you started that relationship almost like kicking and screaming. Why?
I left my last startup somewhat unceremoniously. And after 3 years as CMO, and I was pretty tight with the CEO who I've known for 20 years. And it was a rough exit. It was the right move. It was a rough exit. And at the same time, it was time to leave the city I was living in. And so I had to start a new career with my consulting practice and find a new city and move the family and kind of keep it all together. A couple of things kind of started blowing up at the same time, to be honest with you. And so I don't think I wanted to face it. I think I wanted to just say, I'm going to power through it. And sometimes powering through it is a good move. And other times it's self-destructive. And so I think I went into it in that way. But then once I got in, I said to her, and Susan Arnold is her name, she's amazing, I'll do the work. You just got to point me in the right direction. So yeah, I was not thrilled that at my age and whenever I felt that, oh my God, I really need a coach at this stage. But the answer was yes, I did. So
man, he took a little dose of his own humility there and hired that coach.
Yeah. That's a good insight. Thank you.
Love it. All right. So let's think back over the last 5 years. What new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Oh, awesome. So I'm going to break it into two parts. In a personal life, exercise daily. And I don't know if you know the Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy.
Of course.
He's got some books about systems. And when you have a system, you take the noise out of your head. So he says exercise every day. I take Sundays off, but exercise every day, even something, and just get out of this negotiation with yourself, right? It stops because you're going to do it every day. And I found that to be super helpful and good for me and adding some mobility and some strength. The other thing, professionally, 2 words. Ship it. And, I came out of big corporate America and, you could polish a product until the market had moved and no one needed it. And sometimes that's the way corporate America works. But I think in startup land, ship it. Who's the guy who said this? If you're not embarrassed by your first release, you waited too long. And I think that was the LinkedIn guy. I forget his name. I shouldn't quote people I don't know, but ship it and get feedback. And so I have found that to be super helpful in my professional life, but also with my clients.
Yeah, I like that. And I want to make a note to our team. If you're not embarrassed by your first release, that is a perfect quote. Beautiful, well said. And I agree with you. Put it out there and get that feedback and iterate. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there on your hands forever. So I love that you brought that. And I want to ask you now, John, what are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
I don't know if it's my exact area of expertise, but follow your passion, right?
What's wrong with that?
I think you might have done a podcast on that. I mean, I don't want to be too cynical about it, but if every kid growing up simply followed their passion, we'd have 1 billion video game developers and other stuff. And so, or, you spend your life skiing or snowboarding, right? And I think there's a small sliver of people who can do that, but I think it's the opposite. I think it's more important to open yourself up to things that you don't know and find a professional passion and then sort of charge at it as hard as you can. But just this, follow your passion. Oh, I like to sew, so I'm going to be in the sewing industry or whatever. Nothing against sewing, but I think it's got it reversed. So I push back on that. And I very seldom troll on LinkedIn, but when I see that one, I definitely jump in. And it's not one of my better habits, to be honest with you.
Oh gosh, I'm going to go look for some of that now so I can jump in with you. So now we come to the namesake of the show. We're going to talk about results, and I want to know, we interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. Hashtag resultsleaderfm. Now let's jump back into the interview. I want to know, John, why do results matter?
Yeah, so I'm going to call back to that one of the first books I mentioned, which is The $1 Million Consultant. And, as a now a consultant for almost 2 years, you can do all the pitching you want. You can talk the greatest game in the world. But, one of the underlying principles is price your services based on the value you deliver. And if you can't identify the value you deliver, results, then you're going to get stuck selling hours and you're going to be in a race to the bottom situation. So it's super important for me when I start a relationship with a new client to be clear. And I learned this from my brother, but when I write a proposal, very close to the top of the section is results you will see are, and then I list them. And now I definitely frame them in a way that makes sense for what I do. I can't fix everything that's going on at a client, but I will outline the things that we're going to work on. And if our engagement begins to deviate for that, I tend to stop and revise the proposal. Even though we're still going, I want to change, because you're going to learn something, especially like if you work for a client for a year, after a couple of months, you get pretty tight. But those first couple of months, who knows where the engagement is going to go, right? And so I just want to make sure that what I'm doing has documented the results that they can expect and then that I deliver. And then the last thing I'll say is, when I send my monthly invoice, now I always send them in advance, there's 2 things I put on it. One is I thank them for the opportunity to help grow the business. And 2 is I remind them of the results that we set out to do. Because when they see an invoice, I want them not to see the money. I want them to see the thing that we produced together. So that's a little trick I learned.
What a great little tip. I haven't heard that before. So let's think back over the last 5 years. What new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
So a couple of things, and I put this up on my website, and if anybody wants to go to it, it's dbajtl.com. I don't think we get a lot of traffic there, and I haven't updated it in quite a while, but one of the things I talk about is, I kind of coined the phrase, or maybe I didn't coin it, but I use it, strategy 1. And strategy 1 to me means, there's an old saying in startup world, they don't actually drown, they starve. And because they don't starve, they drown, reversed it. They drown because they try to do too many things at once, which makes sense. Everything's coming at you. So the first thing I do with clients that I talk about is, let's see all the things that you're doing and let's see which things you can stop doing, and then take that same time and put them into fewer things, preferably one, right? So I'm working with this one client, and they're a software company from Europe, and I'm helping them launch in the US, and we tried a bunch of different stuff. We started doing email stuff, we started doing LinkedIn stuff, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. And one of the ideas we did was a referral program. And after about a month in, we had this conversation hey, this referral program is the only thing that's really showing results, let's double down on that. And so we literally stopped. We stopped talking about LinkedIn. We stopped talking about Coco. And I actually signed on. My whole next engagement with them is to formalize and build out a referral program because it's working, because it's proven results. So that's one thing that we do, but we go deep and we push for the results that we're looking for.
Yeah, I like to think of it in terms of delegate or delete. Either get it off my plate or get rid of it if it ain't moving the dial.
And then stop thinking about it. Give yourself the mind space to put it away and know that it's not coming back. Or maybe you wait 3 months and you say, hey, let's go back and rethink this. Are we still seeing the results? Is this still where we want to focus? That's okay to recheck, but you can't have that throb going in the back of your head. Well, why aren't we doing that? No, if it's off the list, it doesn't exist. We're not doing it.
That is a quotable. If it's off the list, it doesn't exist. Make sure you guys get that one. All right, let's turn introspective for a second here. And I'd like to ask you, what area of your business would you like to see better results?
Yeah, definitely introspective. So something I'm still not really good at is time management. And I can go down rat holes and look up and the whole afternoon is gone. And that isn't great. And I've created this bad habit of what I call weekend work. And I just start making lists of work I'm going to do on the weekend because I didn't get it done during the week. Now, some of that is because I oversubscribe myself, but some of it is because I don't manage my time super well. So I want to get better on that. And then here's the big one. Do you know the story of the kid who comes down like Christmas morning and he sees a pile of horse manure on the floor? And this is obviously a dumb made up story. And he starts going happy, so happy. And the dad's like, what are you talking about? There's horse manure. And the kid says, there's got to be a pony somewhere. Terrible old joke. But I can see a pony in everything. And there's times when to get better results, I need to stop looking for that pony in a relationship. It's just not there. It's not coming. And, give it respect and then move it on because it's not going to happen. And maybe that's linked to time management. Maybe it's a little bit different, but I need to get better at not always looking for the pony.
Gosh.
Sometimes it's just a pile of horses. There's no pony coming.
Oh, man, that is awesome. So what results are you most proud of?
Well, again, maybe this is breaking from the humble thing, but I will tell you this. If you're ever thinking about changing cities, changing jobs, and starting your own business at the same time, I'd recommend you don't do it. But if you have to do it like I did, then if you're fortunate to make it work. So right now, I'm pretty happy that I've got 3, 4, 5 clients at different phases, and it's bringing in revenue, and I'm doing good work, and I'm super happy with the work that we're doing. And so when I think back about this, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. It happened. Now, I'm not satisfied. I want to grow it. I want to do more. But for this amount of time in, I'm pretty pleased with the results.
Love it, man. So any parting thoughts you'd like to share with the results leaders out there?
Yeah, to keep it simple and figure out, like I think there's this decision-making thing where you think you have to have a 5-point plan and all this kind of stuff. And I don't take anything away from planning, but sometimes you can schedule or try to do so many things because you're really just pushing bets off around the table and hoping one of them comes true. And what's the old saying? Hope isn't a plan, right? Hope isn't a strategy. So do the work. And then pick that one thing that you have some reason to believe is working and can work better, and then focus on that. And so just do fewer things and do it better.
Man, that is some valuable advice. So, John, when our listeners want to catch up with you, where's the best place for them to go?
Definitely LinkedIn. That's really the only place. It's still the only social network I spend any professional time on. Don't look at my Twitter feed. It's not me professionally. But yeah, and then you can check out my web. So I'm just John Lane on LinkedIn, and my website is dbajtl.com. Now I'll ask you a question. I don't know if this is a good one or not, but do you get the gag in my business name, DBAJTL? Most people don't, and that was my fault.
doing business as J.T. Lane?
That's exactly right.
I do my research, homeboy.
Here's a funny example of like getting ahead of your skis. So I fell in love with the name, and I bought the domain, and I spun up the LLC, and then I started like emailing my friends from John at DBAJTL announcing it. And the most common response I got was, "Who is this?" and so the domain name did not carry enough oomph for who I am. So now I have to be, John.Lane at dbajtl.com. So that was one that is probably advice I would have given myself, do it in a little bit of a different order.
That's a great. I went to your website. That's how I know. But yeah. John, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We will definitely have links to your LinkedIn and to your website, dbajtl.com, all in the show notes. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I love your newsletter. And I guess is it every weekday? I'm promoting you now.
Yeah, I email too much.
No, it's good. You didn't look, I didn't like it. You hit the delete button. It's kind of painless, but I read it almost every day, and there's some really good stuff in it. And
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
That is a wrap for another episode of ResultsLeader.fm. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.